On numbers 13 and 14, we're asked to find the volume of each figure and round to the nearest hundredth. So hundredths, remember it goes tenths, hundredths is 2 decimal places. And we've been rounding mainly to the tenths so far. So remember, our formulas for prisms and pyramids are different. For any prism, your volume is going to be the area of the base, so I'm going to use a capital B for base area, times the height of the prism, which remember is the distance between the two bases. For pyramids, it's always a third of that, because remember it took 3 of these pyramids to fill up the prism that was the same base. So 1/3 base area times height for all pyramids and cones. So number 13 is a prism, has 2 bases. With this, it really doesn't matter, since they're all rectangles, a square is a rectangle, it really doesn't matter which of those rectangles you call your base. So we know to find the area of a rectangle, it's length times width, and then we're multiplying by the height of the prism. So the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. Since that's all multiplication, the order does not matter, so it doesn't matter which one of these we call the length, the width, and the height. For this square, the 2 dimensions are the same. That's what makes it a square. So 2 of these numbers are going to be a 3, and then the last number is going to be this 11. That's the distance between those 2 square bases. So our length and width are both 3 yards. And our height is 11 yards. Even though that's not vertical, it's horizontal. It's the distance between these 2 bases. So our volume is simply going to be 3 times 3 times 11. And again, the order does not matter, since that's all multiplication. So we're just multiplying 3 times 11, and we get our volume is 99. Now we were given units as yards, and we multiplied yards times yards times yards, so our units are yards to the 3rd power. So 99 cubic yards is the volume for number 13. Number 14 is not a prism. It only has 1 base. At the opposite side, remember we have this point that is called the apex of that pyramid. So the base is across from that apex. It's this rectangle that's at the bottom. Remember, the lateral faces, the ones along the side of a pyramid, are always going to be triangles. And we see these triangles, there's going to be 4 that are the sides of that pyramid, and it's a rectangular pyramid. So the base of a rectangular pyramid is a rectangle. So our volume here is going to be 1/3, and the base area is length times width, since it's a rectangle, and then we have to multiply it by the height of the pyramid. Remember, the height we're talking about is from the apex to the center of the base, and it's perpendicular, so we're given that height to be 5. We're also given the length and width of our rectangle as 12 and 7. The order again does not matter. The length is usually the longer one, so we'll say the length is 12, the width is 7, and the height of the pyramid was given as 5. So we're going to have 1/3, since it's a pyramid, times the 12 times the 7 times the 5. Now, when we have 1/2, we can always replace it with 0.5 as a decimal. You cannot replace 1/3 with 0.3. They're not the same thing. 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, and we can't put that in our calculator. So instead, the way that we do this in our calculator is we multiply the 12 times the 7 times the 5 first, and when we get that answer, to find 1/3 of it, we divide that by 3. Dividing by 3 is the same thing as finding 1/3. So our volume here is 140, and our units were feet. So we were multiplying feet by feet by feet, so we get cubic feet as our units.